Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today I want to talk about 6 books. So these 6 books I had to read for my birth, labor, and postpartum doula course. So I want to talk about reading books in general because as you can tell I've read a lot of books. I also read 9 other books on top of these 6 during my pregnancy to educate myself before becoming a doula right after my son was born. Or not becoming a doula, but working towards becoming a doula. I'm just going to go over these books one by one to talk about what one each is about, and then I'm going to recommend some of those extra books that I read that I really enjoyed. The thing about reading books is that you're going to have ones you like and ones you don't like. I ended up with some that I really just didn't vibe with. They didn't teach me anything, and I definitely preferred other books to them. But I wouldn't have known that before reading them. And that's why it's important to read books. So this was one of my favorite books I read from the 6. This one has lots of helpful information in it about how to have that natural birth. It talks a lot about induction, the domino effect, why so many people are having C-sections. So I highly recommend this book if you're somebody who wants to avoid a C-section and you want to try to have that natural birth. I know not everybody wants that. I'm somebody who definitely did. So this is one of the books I wish I read before I had my son, but unfortunately I read it after. So hopefully this will help me with my VBAC that I plan to have. Another book was Baby Catcher. This is a very popular book. You've probably seen it floating around the internet. Probably because it reminds you of the Nirvana cover. That's what it reminded me of, and a lot of other people. This book is full of birth stories. It's just like a journal of birth stories. And this is something really fascinating to read if you're not familiar with birth. I'm somebody who has never really attended a birth, and I haven't really been around babies that much in my life. This is a book that I think it would have benefited somebody like me. Before having a baby, to teach me how unpredictable birth is. Birth is so unpredictable, whether you are the birthing person or you are the healthcare provider. So this is a book written by a midwife, more so aimed towards midwives, but doulas can use it to learn from, and new parents and other healthcare providers can read it to learn from how unpredictable birth is, what some women want and will fight for, and why. So yeah. That's why this one's a good book. This book is the best postpartum book I have ever read. I read a couple postpartum books when I was pregnant because I was worried that I would struggle with postpartum depression because I already had struggled with depression. So I didn't read this before my pregnancy, but I wish it was one of those books I could have discovered. So that is why I will forever recommend it as a doula, certifying doula, or as just a person in general, because this book I think can help every single person that has. It's not meant for people just who are struggling with the mental health issues. This is meant for anybody struggling with any kind of stress after having a baby. This is like the only book you need. I haven't found any other postpartum book like this. So, cannot recommend it enough. That's all I can say about it. There's too much good stuff to say about it. I'm not even going to try to summarize it. But eventually I want to make worksheets on it because I think it could really help some people, and that's why it's tagged, because I'm reading it again to try to write out those worksheets. This book also had a lot of good stuff in it that I'm going to be turning into worksheets, and there's one more I'm going to show you, but it's a different kind of worksheet. These ones are more like for your birth and for postpartum. This one is more about how to make the birth enjoyable, how to make it a spiritual event. Because birth is a rite of passage. It's something that you're truly growing from, and I don't think some people understand how they grow from it. I have changed so much since having a baby. I just don't think I realize all the ways in which I've changed and grown. And this book really highlights those things you have to give up and those things you gain through having a baby, through motherhood. So This is another amazing book I read. It was the first one I read actually because it was the biggest and I was scared about it, but I'm really glad I read it first because it was just amazing. There's just so many good little things in this book that you can implement in your life that will make having your next baby amazing. This is another book I had to read, The Fourth Trimester. I expected more from this book. I thought this book would focus more on the mental health aspects of postpartum, but it didn't. So that's why I recommend that book. But this book does focus on everything to expect postpartum. So if you want just a good pocketbook to pull out to explain to somebody why they're going through something, or if you want to give them a book to read to learn more about that kind of stuff, this is one of those books you could recommend or just have in your pocket to pull out. This is what I call another pocketbook, but it's a beautifully designed pocketbook. I loved the pictures all throughout this book. That's what attracted me to it originally. But again, it's like a pocketbook. It has a lot of useful information in it, but it's very small blurbs, not like a giant book full of studies and information and resources. Which is why it's good for a new mom. This one covers everything from birth to postpartum. So this is one that I will probably recommend to clients because there's lots of little cute things in it that your clients can do. It also has a little diagram on this page that is very important. So I like having this on me to just pull that out and be like, wha-bam. So I would recommend these two to a new parent or to a new doula who just wants to have 2 books on them to summarize some stuff, because this basically summarizes everything we learn about. I'd recommend this to somebody who's wanting to heal from their first birth or have that amazing birth that they've always desired. I recommend this book to anybody wanting to have that natural birth. Like I said, I recommend this book to everybody. This book I mostly recommend to midwives, but also doulas to learn from, and new parents in healthcare. So now I want to talk about a couple other books I remember reading from before working towards becoming a doula. These are books I read when I was pregnant. So I read one called The No Cry Sleep Solution. I'll post a picture of it so you guys know what it looks like. So this is a book that I actually took pages from it and I would summarize it on another piece of paper, and I printed that out. It's a very functional book. It teaches you how to sleep train your child in gentle ways, and you can honestly start implementing that from birth. They recommend around 4 months to really actually start sleep training, because that's when a baby's cortisol finally kind of starts to kick in. When they're first born, they don't have cortisol, so that's why their sleep cycle is all over the place. There's things that when you know they're normal, you don't care as much about them, and I think that's why it's important this book educates you on that. But it also gives you so many helpful practical tips that you can apply to your life to help you train your kid to sleep better. And I recommend that book to any new mom who may be having sleep problems with their kids. I read the book Breastfeeding, and it was like the only book I needed to read on breastfeeding. Every other book I read after that on breastfeeding did not hit the spot like that one. I summarized that book. It was awesome. So I highly recommend that for anybody who wants to breastfeed or is struggling with breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is hands down the best. I read a book on premature babies because my mom was a premature baby and I wasn't sure what would happen. It's always good to be prepared and read about those things that you are scared of. That did help me prepare. Even though Oliver was not a premature baby, he ended up in the NICU for 2 days for no reason. And I was freaking out the whole time, and reading everything from that book summarized really helped me stay calm and keep my cool cucumber face on and power through everything, because I knew exactly what was happening because it was all right there in that book I read. Highly recommend that for anybody who has a premature baby, is worried you're gonna have one, wants to educate yourself on that, or you had a NICU baby, or you have a NICU baby. I also read another book on cesareans. Honestly, there's lots of books out there that describe cesareans very well, so I wouldn't recommend a certain book. I don't even remember the exact name of the book I read, but I know I'll find it written down somewhere later. But reading about that was something I was scared of, read it anyway, ended up having an emergency C-section, was worth the read, and just keep educating yourself on those things you're scared to read about. Those are my book recommendations. I'll see you guys in another video. Goodbye.